So do good or do well. You're probably wondering, what's that got to do with the reading? On the face of it, not much. But hopefully it will soon become clear. The other day, my wife SJ and I were watching a film called Spooks, The Greater Good. Now, for those of you who don't know, Spooks was a TV series which followed the clandestine shenanigans of MI5 in London. There are lots of intricate plots, Machiavellian plans, intrigue, and a fair bit of shooting, etc. And the film was no exception. It was portrayed as the TV series bursting onto the big screen. But I'm not going to go on about the film. There was one part in the film which really kind of spoke to me. In it, there's an ex-MI5 officer. He's been decommissioned for years, but has been brought back into an intricate plot. And he's speaking to a current MI5 officer. And he says to her, being in the service, you can either do good or do well. He was talking about the fact that those who join the service to do good, protect people, catch the baddies, do the right thing, never seem to last long. However, those who will achieve the aims by any means, follow orders without question, even if they feel those orders are wrong, will do well, get promoted, rise up in the ranks of the service, become a section chief, whatever. So his phrase, do good or do well, came back to me when I looked at the reading. In the reading, we hear that Jesus is teaching in a meeting place, or a synagogue. So what? He was often in synagogues. He was often in meeting places. He was often teaching. But I think to fully understand this reading, we need to look at the wider picture. After all, I cannot imagine that the elders in the synagogue were particularly happy to have Jesus there teaching. After all, he was something of a radical. He had really new ideas. He was telling people that they could just talk to God. No intermediaries. He was talking about a close personal relationship with God. A family type relationship. He was, in fact, something of a game changer. He was moving beyond the traditional teachings and a strict interpretation of the law. I can imagine the elders being very nervous about him being there, but having no easy way to refuse him. I would imagine that they would probably have sat in and listened to every word he said, waiting for him to say something that they could use to push him out, discredit him. So what that means is there was already an air of tension in that place, before this woman even enters. They then seize on his healing of this woman as a break with the law concerning activities you can carry out on the Sabbath. Jesus heals her, and the elder straight away jumps up and goes, hey, hang on, what's going on here? You can't do that on the Sabbath. You've got to have 6 other days of the week you can heal people. What are you doing on the Sabbath? But the main mistake I believe they made in saying this was they did it in front of everybody, in front of the congregation. And Jesus immediately responded, and he calls them hypocrites. And he points out that they would quite happily release their animals to go out into the field and feed or to get water on the Sabbath, yet they balk at curing someone, at freeing someone from pain. It just doesn't seem to make sense. And at this point, everyone there pipes up. And you can just imagine them saying, yay, go out, Jesus, stick it to him, you tell him. And Jesus chose to do the right thing, rather than be in the good graces of the hierarchy there. A bit of a maverick, really. With his free thinking, his new ideas, his vision of a God that was close and personal. fact, he had gone against the law, as strictly interpreted by some of the religious leaders. But he pointed out that in this case the law made no sense. He tended to do that. I mean, there are a number of stories in the Bible about throughout his ministry where he chose to do the right thing rather than strictly adhere to the law. He chose to do good rather than do well. After all, he gave his life to see that his teachings, his mission, his views, his ideals, and mostly his incredibly radical love for everyone, without exception, would carry on, would spread throughout the world, and would change the lives of people. Throughout history, that message has changed lives, and it still does today. So on the face of it, this story of a crippled woman healed on a Saturday in a meeting place in the middle of nowhere, who knows, 2,000 years ago, seems insignificant compared to some of the Bible stories, compared to some of the big flashy stories that we hear about. But to me it seems that the message contained within this simple story is huge. And I truly believe that at some point in all of our lives, we will be faced with that same stark choice, to do good or do well. I know that in my recent past I have been faced with that choice. And I pray that God continues to give me the courage and strength to always choose to do good.